Good evening, and welcome to the New Windsor Town County Council Forum for this evening. My name is Charles Harrison, Chair of the Community Media Center Board of Directors. Tonight's forum is being held at the New Windsor Fire Hall. This program is being streamed live and will be streamed at the Carroll Media Center website at carrollmediacenter.org. It will also be rebroadcast on channels 19, channel 23, and our new high-definition channel 1086. The Carroll Media Center is partnering with the Carroll County Times to bring you this programming as a public service to the community. I will now turn the programming over to our moderator for this evening, Mr. Bob Blubaugh, editor of the Carroll County Times. Bob?
Thank you, Charles. As moderator for this evening, I'll introduce each of the candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following the forum introductions, candidate responses will be rotated. Each candidate has drawn a number for the first question and will rotate from there. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question. All candidates will answer the identical questions. The questions have been selected from those that were submitted in advance to the Carroll County Times, to the Community Media Center, from the town of New Windsor, and hopefully we'll get some new questions from the live audience tonight as well. There will be no debate. This is an informational forum. At the conclusion of the question period, before the ending of the forum, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a summary statement. All responses will be timed, and the timekeeper will give candidates a signal when 30 seconds remain. The timekeeper will ring a bell 2 to 3 seconds after the final stop signal is given, and the moderator may immediately interrupt the candidate and discontinue the statement or answer at that time. Tonight's forum is being recorded, so we ask that everyone please turn their cell phones off and that attendees refrain from applause or making noise during the forum or doing anything visible or audible to express support or opposition to any candidate during the forum. Please demonstrate respect toward all candidates. Now, let us begin. Each candidate may now present a 2-minute opening statement, and we will start with the winner of the draw, Councilman David Hoffman.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Dave Hoffman, and I am running for the New Windsor Town Council. I appreciate the opportunity to address the residents of New Windsor to convey my qualifications for this position. I am a 25-year resident of New Windsor, and I have served in various capacities to support the town over the years. I am currently a council member and was elected in May 2015. I had previously been selected in January of 2014 to fill a vacated position. I served for 11 years on the New Windsor Planning Commission and was the chairman for 3 years. In that position, I helped develop effective planning regulations for the town. I also served for 5 years as the New Windsor representative of the West Carroll Recreation Council. I ensured the children in our community had sports programs and facilities available to them so they could participate in various activities throughout the year. I am dedicated to providing competent stewardship so that New Windsor remains a great place to live and raise a family. I believe in being fiscally responsible and ensuring strategic planning to continue to move New Windsor forward. I am a collaborative problem solver, and I am committed to providing New Windsor with strong leadership. I would like to continue to serve the residents of New Windsor as a member of the Town Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Thomas Frank Gubernatis, Jr.
Hi, I'm Tom Gubernatis, and I'm running for town council this year. I'm a 14-year resident of the town itself. I've seen a lot of changes and some things that we have all faced as challenges over time. I would like to be able to have a hand or put my my intellect and my experiences in different facets of the construction industry and whatnot, in the building trades, forward in some of the things we do in infrastructure items and whatnot throughout time, and like to do things to make the town more attractive to outside businesses, residents to come in and to work together to reduce costs to us all.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. William Hall.
Hello, I'm William Hall. I attended New Windsor's Middle and I am an Eagle Scout of New Windsor Zone, Troop 582. My fiance and I bought a house right on Main Street, and am amazed by the town's history each and every day. We are getting married later this year at New Windsor's Magnolia Manor, actually a slight walk right from our front door. We are also welcoming in our first son to this great town in October. When I first moved in, I decided I wanted to give back to the town, and I've started attending meetings every week. I decided to run on 3 simple principles: reduce, rethink, and replenish. We must reduce the water bills and repeal the pay-as-you-throw trash program. This will release the financial burden placed on residents while encouraging new businesses to open up in our town. We must rethink the way we communicate. Often I hear decisions are made due to lack of residents attending meetings. This is not the right mentality, and I have created a blog to keep the community informed and up to date with information. I encourage feedback. This website gets hundreds of views each week, and I often hear from residents how it helped them understand the town better. Last, we must replenish. You can barely walk within town without tripping on our sidewalks. You even see leaks on our streets. One trait that sets me apart is my dedication. I often spend hours each week communicating with residents, reaching out to commissioners, and posting relevant news to the town blog. I look forward to answering your questions tonight and believe I will be a great addition to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Councilwoman Kimberlee Schultz.
Good evening. I'm Kim Schultz, and I've been on the town council for 8 years. And I'm running for re-election because I love this town. It's a remarkable community, and I enjoy working to keep it that way and to improve it. I raise my children here, I'm very active in the community, and I'm very active in my role as a town council member. On paper, this job is 2 meetings a month and making decisions at those meetings. But the reality is that for all the people who are council members now, we spend a lot more time than that. I personally attend about 5 meetings a month, and I spend a lot of time reading, and I spend a lot of time communicating with the residents. People contact me from the staff, from the county, and from the residents. I like to respond quickly, so I do spend a lot of time on social media myself. I do this because I'm very dedicated to New Windsor, and I always will be no matter what happens. And I also want to say that I really don't subscribe to the thinking that there's a government and there's citizens, especially in a small town. We are the government. We're all pretty accessible, and we should be. I think that we all have a responsibility to be informed, to know what's going on, and I've championed ways for us to communicate better. One of the things that we're looking forward to doing in our new town hall is maybe being able to live stream our meetings and then archive those so people could see them. So that will make the town more accessible. But we all have a responsibility to stay informed and understand how our town works. And so if coming to the meeting is possible, please do that. If not, then go ahead and see what we're saying online. Right now, CMT does broadcast our meetings once a month, and then they archive those. I want you to know that when the town council and the mayor and the staff make decisions, we have to consider many factors, but we always do it with a desire to do what's best for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Terry Green.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Terry Green. I'm running for town council. So before I get into qualifications, I've been a resident here for 5 years now. When we first moved here from Anne Arundel County, we fell in love with the charm of the town. First few days here, we looked over properties through all out Carroll County, and we fell in love with the property here in New Windsor. We were sold when we went to Uncle Mattie's for the very first time, and the food was amazing. Everybody was great. So we decided to move here to New Windsor a little over 5 years ago. In that time frame, my daughter, my oldest daughter, she actually graduated from Francis Scott Key High School in 2017. She currently works as a server at Uncle Mattie's. So I like to think with our involvement now, I am officially a New Windsoran. Both my younger children were born in Carroll County Hospital, so they're officially Carroll County residents. I work for the state of Maryland. Within the last 5 years of working for the state of Maryland, I've been promoted 3 times. I originally started with Maryland Correctional Enterprises as a warehouse clerk. Within 6 months, I was promoted again to installation coordinator overseeing multi-million-dollar furniture projects for the state of Maryland. After that, I took a job running facilities where I overseen facilities budgets for Maryland Department of Health. Following that, within a year, I was promoted one more time, now to the Director of Telecommunications for all of Maryland Department of Health. The reason I've been so successful is I believe in great customer service, I believe in working hard, and I also believe in being fiscally responsible with your money, my money, as a state employee. I believe I can bring some great value being a council member. I'm very big on what we can do for revenue, how to generate revenue, how to make us more successful while lowering the cost and making it more affordable. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And at this point, I'd just like to point out that another candidate, Michael A. Zepp, was unable to attend the forum tonight because of work commitments. All right, so let's begin with the first question, and we'll start with Councilman Hoffman. Why have you chosen to run for the town council, and what are your qualifications?
Thank you. I chose to run for the town council because I love the town of New Windsor. I have been active in the community almost since the time that I moved here. When my children were small, I began working with the rec council. So I have continuously progressed my involvement in the town. As I mentioned in my opening statements, I was involved in the rec council, the planning commission, and then into the town council. So through that progression, I was able to understand the town issues, see how the town worked before I actually got involved and was able to be a decision maker in the town. I would like to continue in that role because I've built 5 years of experience now working with the mayor and town council. I think we have done some tremendous things for the town. We have taken on several very challenging issues, very challenging for the community as well as the council, but we have always made the decisions for those issues with the citizens' best interest at heart. I will continue to work for the town citizens. I pay the same taxes you do. I want to see that money utilized the best it can. I will continue to move the town forward in the projects we have, such as the infrastructure issues, our streets, our water, and our sewer systems. We have some great economic development opportunities in town that I would like to be involved in. And I want to see the new town hall, which will be opening soon, come to fruition. I think that was a great asset for the town. I would like to see the additional parks that we're putting in place come to fruition as well. So lots on the horizon, and I would like to be involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Just why have you chosen to run for town council, and what do you feel are your qualifications?
I chose to run for town council to try to put a first-hand, hands-on approach to or a contribution rather, to the daily activities and things that involve the residents of us all from somebody fresh on the outside and not on the inside, hopefully to bring a new perspective and some new ideas to the table. I have been a steward in my career itself. I've worked as a construction foreman for years at Johns Hopkins Hospital. I've had to network with different people, different departments, coordinate with other crafts and whatnot, and reach out to the customer itself. So, you know, customer service as well as me is a big priority as well.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
One of the best things that I bring is dedication. Ever since we moved here, I've always been dedicated to this town. Even before that, when I was in the Boy Scouts, I actually had my Eagle Project in New Windsor. One of the things that I've done is I've created the website where most residents can go on and see what happened at the town meetings the next day or maybe 2 days later. And that's the dedication that I'm going to bring. I'm always going to be dedicated to this town. I will bring new thoughts. I have already brought new thoughts, and I want to increase the communication with the town residents, and they give me feedback through the website, and I bring that to the town hall. So one of the main things I would say is dedication.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilwoman Schultz?
I think many of this, I would agree with my fellow panelists here on a lot of the same things. I definitely feel like I love New Windsor. I can't imagine any place else I would want to live. It's just such a great community, and I really want to work to keep it that way, and whether I'm reelected or not, I would do that. I've always been involved in the town, and I'm involved in several committees, and you know, my love of New Windsor will continue, and my work for the town will continue. And I think the other reason is because I'm really enjoying being on the council, and the reason I enjoy that is you sort of get a front row seat to what's really going on in the town. I think, I don't want to say it's easy, but when you're not looking at the details and the challenges on a regular basis, sometimes you wonder what people are doing, and you think, well, why did they make that decision, and why did they make this decision? But with 8 years on the council, I know why most of the decisions were made, and they're hard decisions, and they're decisions that were made because we want what's best for the town. And I think that, you know, really, that it really just comes down to loving the town. And you know, and I also have a background in communications. That's what I do on my other job. And I enjoy communicating with the residents, and I hear from them a lot, and I want to continue to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Thank you. So I just previously went over my work experience. So why I wanted to run for town council, it's fairly simple. I want to make New Windsor attractive, not only for older residents that still live here, but younger residents coming in. We got 128 new homes potentially being built over at Snyder Summit. We have 14 properties currently up for sale. What our current water and sewer rates are right now, it's not attractive for younger families to come here. And that's something we really need to take a hard look at and figure out how we can generate more revenue coming in, be it, as we just heard a little while ago, about potential a new town park. When I look at that town park, and it was a great presentation by the University of Maryland, they did an awesome job, 2 great proposals. But there was no source of revenue other than one idea. Why can't we create a park that is beautiful and is functional, but yet generates revenue for our town? Why can't we put in a splash park for kids, which is a low liability, but yet you can charge fees and rates to come inside and surrounding communities? The closest thing we have to that is the Y in Westminster. So it'll bring people from Union Bridge, it'll bring people from Littlestown, surrounding areas to our community. And by doing that, we can also add revenue to where the park doesn't become a problem in the sense of maintenance cost and further cost upon the residents, but it actually becomes a source of revenue to where we can lower the water and sewer rates, where we can get rid of this pay-as-you-throw program that is a hardship currently on a lot of us residents. So that's why I'm running for town council, because I want to bring the prices down. I want to make it more affordable and more attractive for younger families to come here and make it more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. Some of you have touched on this a little bit already, but how long have you lived in New Windsor, and what's your current and past community involvement? And this time we'll start with Mr. Gubernatis.
Pardon me. I have lived in New Windsor now for 14 years. Community involvement, I've just networked with different things that kids have done, whether it be extracurricular sports, scouts, and whatnot, and helping out with those capacities.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
So this is our second year living in New Windsor. My fiance and I bought the house. As I said, I was always involved in New Windsor, always lived around New Windsor. And community, I've always went to the meetings, as I said. I'm also volunteering as the Carroll Cable Regulatory Commission for New Windsor. So that's going to help make sure that New Windsor has their say in the cable regulations for the county.
Thank you. Councilwoman Schultz?
I've lived in New Windsor for 25 years. When the children were younger, I was involved with the sports activities. I've been on the New Windsor Heritage Committee for 25 years. And I volunteer at the town events like the Beautification Day and the Music on the Main and the Memorial Day event. I also am in a larger community way. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Human Services Programs of Carroll County and the Arts Council of Carroll County, and I also belong to the Historical Society of Carroll County.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, so as far as my community involvement, about 4 years ago, I started a program. It was called the Maryland Monarchs Softball Program, which actually became very successful once we moved to Tawnytown. So I was the president of that for 2 years. It's a great program. It's a 5-star program currently. As far as, we originally started here in West Carroll, but we knew we had to reach more children, right? So when we moved the program to Tawnytown, it's also a feeder for Francis Scott Key High School. Actually, over the next 5 years, they'll see more girls softball players coming in that are training all year long. So it's a great thing locally for us here as far as the interaction with the young ladies going into Francis Scott Key High School.
Thank you. And Councilman Hoffman?
Thank you. I have lived in town for 25 years. I have not only been the town council member, I am the liaison to the planning commission. I have been on the planning commission, the chairman of the planning commission. I have been involved in the recreation council. I was the advocate for several of the programs there. I also was a baseball coach as well when my children were small. I have been involved in several civic organizations around town, including the scouting program when my children were involved in that. I am a member of the New Windsor Heritage Committee. I participate in fire department supported events. I am involved heavily in several of the activities that the town does, such as Music on the Main, the town cleanup, the Memorial Day services, and have also participated in things like the New Windsor Heritage Hall of Fame dinners. Thank you.
Thank you. This time starting with Mr. Hall. What do you most appreciate and admire about the town of New Windsor?
I love the history. When we moved in, it was amazing finding things in the house, just the historic nature. We found license plates from the 20s. I mean, it's just amazing the things that you find, and we keep finding things more and more every day. It's a small town. It's nice to be away from the city, and the best thing is the history of this town.
Thank you. Councilwoman Schultz?
Well, I have to agree with Will. I think the history is and the beautiful architecture and the charm of New Windsor are the things that I love about it. I also love that it's small and that we know so many people. If I go to Uncle Maddie's, I always see somebody I know. If I go to 7-Eleven, I see somebody I know. If I go to Frankie's now, I see somebody I know. So I really enjoy that. And, it's nice to be in a small community and have those connections. And we've made a lot of connections in the 25 years that we've been here. But honestly, I really enjoy walking around and looking at the beautiful architecture. That's probably my favorite thing.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, so what I really enjoy about the town is the actual people. So when we moved here from Anne Arundel County, the very first day when we moved in, we had a neighbor bring us a cake. We were shocked because that does not happen in Anne Arundel County. So the people here are great. You ride by, people wave to you, how you doing, hello. I love that community atmosphere. That's how I grew up in Anne Arundel County in the 90s, and I see the same thing here, and I love having this for my children to be raised in.
Thank you. Councilman Hoffman?
So you're going to hear a lot of the same themes. So my wife and I, we moved to New Windsor because of the architecture. We were always looking for a Victorian home, and in our search all over the state of Maryland, we always ended up back in New Windsor, and that's where we purchased our home. For the first several years that we lived there, it was a rite of spring for me to be putting up the scaffolding and start to paint the house and take it down in the fall. The neighbors knew when things were going to happen. But the people of the town, totally had the same experience that Mr. Green did, that the first day we were here, we had neighbors over providing us food, and it was amazing. We also came from Anne Arundel County and did not have that experience there. But I think one of maybe the most impactful things, both my children were born and raised here in New Windsor, and they have many sets of grandparents, and the neighbors are their grandparents, and I think you can't find that in too many places. It's very special.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
I've always been attracted to this town as a young age. I grew up in Sykesville, Edwardsburg area. I used to travel up here and drive through it just to take it in. I used to come up here for carnivals and whatnot and sit on the hill if I wasn't to participate, just to watch. I've been very taken in by the history myself. I've collected a lot of things over time. I have New Windsor saved as an eBay search. So when I find something that I find that is, kind of rare, one of a kind or whatnot, including yearbooks to the old school just across the hill, I pick them up and put them in a stash of different things. It's a very beautiful town. It's very quaint. It's got a lot of charm to it. And there's a lot of history if you do your due diligence in digging, that you learn about some structures that you would never have any idea of what their former role was.
Thank you. So for the next question, what are the biggest challenges facing the town, and how do you propose to address them? And we'll start with Councilwoman Schultz.
Well, we've already heard from a couple of the statements. We all know that the water bill is a big challenge, and there's a few things that are going on right now that are going to help that a little bit. One is that we did find out from the state just this week that we got $250,000 reduction or forgiveness of the loan for one of our tanks. And so I'm going to propose at the next work session, assuming I'm there, that we put that savings towards reducing the bill. And also, we only owe about $6,000 more on that loan. So I think it probably just would make sense to pay it off and pass those savings on. So the water bill is a challenge, and I think that, the council is constantly looking at ways to reduce it. We're going to be bringing on, like Mr. Green mentioned, several new homes, 100 possibly new homes, and those are going to bring in revenue from taxes and impact and connection fees, so we can look at how those can help reduce the bill. So that's definitely the biggest challenge that everybody's aware of on a monthly basis, at least. The other big challenge, of course, is our other infrastructure, which is the main water line that we have coming into town is more than 100 years old, and it leaks profusely. So, and that's one of the reasons the water bill is high, is because we need to be putting money aside to fix those things. Just last year, we had about $200,000 in basically one of them was a break in a water main, and we had the money to fix it because we had been putting reserves aside. And the other infrastructure, of course, is the roads. And so we're working with the state on, I can't even remember what the project's called now, but it was called Streetscape, and trying to get funding to at least redo some of our main roads and sidewalks so that they're more safe and passable.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, so, of course, I agree with Ms. Schultz here. The biggest challenge that we have is currently the water and sewer bill, right? So what we need to look at is how do we lower it, because the water and sewer rates currently is your sole source or biggest source of revenue for the town, which is set aside for, as Ms. Schultz was just discussing, to try to repair the infrastructure. So when we look at that, how do we fix that? So how do we get to fixing that is we got to look at what's the potential of lowering maybe a small business tax to attract more businesses to come in and create more revenue. As we just stated, the park, how can we generate revenue from creating a park? So we need to look outside and find more revenue sources instead of having this one sole source of revenue coming in, that is the majority of revenue coming in, to fix the infrastructure. I agree, streetscape. When I looked at that plan and proposal, it's beautifully laid out. It's online through MDOT. I encourage anybody to check it out. It's a beautiful plan, but the problem is when the state pulled that funding, that's $9 million that's pulled, and $4 million that we're looking at for infrastructure upgrades. You're looking at roughly around $13 million that would come back to the residents if we move forward with that plan. I would love to see the sidewalks. I would love to walk my dogs. I would love to walk my children. But $13 million is a hard obstacle to overcome without sources of revenue. So I think what we need to really look at and focus on is how can we create more small businesses to come to New Windsor and create more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hoffman?
Thank you. So I'd like to talk about the infrastructure. Obviously, they're my three biggest concerns, the water, the sewer, and the streets. I'd like to start with the water and sewer. First of all, the water and sewer systems need to be self-sustaining. Okay, that we do not take tax dollars in and fund our water and sewer system. The people that use the water and sewer system pay a fee for the water and sewer that they use, and that is what funds this system. The system is not just made up of the water that shows up and goes away. There is a whole infrastructure associated with that. Everything from where the water source is, the pipes that bring it in, to the chlorine tanks, to the water storage tanks, to the pumping stations that move the sewage system into our plant, the plant processes, and the removal of the material from the processing to its final resting stage. Okay, all of that costs money. That money has to be paid for by the users. About $1.2 million is what we have to budget, what is in the operating budget of those two systems alone. Okay, the citizens of New Windsor, approximately 600 households, bear that cost. So within there, yes, we do put money away and save that for a rainy day. As Ms. Schultz said, we've had many issues with water breaks that luckily we had put money away that we were able to pay for those. And we have done all that in the last 5 years the last 4 years without raising any taxes at all on the citizens. So we have put the fees in place that the system can remain a self-generating, a self-sustaining system. The streets, again, our streets are, yes, they're getting in disrepair. We have about 6.1 miles of roadways within town. We did a study several years ago to look at the town streets to see which ones were the most important to fix. It's about a $5 million bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis.
Well, as everybody said, and it's kind of the same across the board, is the water and sewer rates have been a tremendous burden to the citizens over time. And also along with the infrastructure and whatnot, it seems as though, so maybe administrations in the far past or whatnot, there was not a lot of planning involved into putting things away where all that burden of the cost seems to be something that's more recent than something that's been planned over time, upgraded as needed or whatnot. So I would really like to see over time that, intelligent decisions be made, for things coming up instead of last minute decisions. I'd also like to see a lot of improvement, whether it be with streetscape or some other avenue we can achieve, that the town look a lot more beautiful, that we have curb appeal, we have a place where people can, wheel around strollers, they can congregate with other people, they can gather at a park, that we have some small businesses that start to pop up back and up and down the main street instead of seeing them in historical pieces.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
So as everybody was saying, the water bill is high. One of the things that I haven't been able to understand is why the water bill keeps going up when we don't see things getting done. One of the things that I see every morning is on Church Street, there's always a water leak. It's been spewing out. That's just money going down the drain every day. And the problem with that is that's not the only leak. I think one of the town council meetings, they said it was roughly up to 50% could be lost. That's just money getting thrown away. And if we use the thousands of dollars that we have built up as reserves to fix these leaks and such, then we could reduce the water bills just by that, by not losing the water. We also, like has been said, is that the state has forgiven some of the loans, and I do see in the future that make the water bill go down. By paying off those loans, we won't have such high loans. So that's going to be good, but I would like to see more done to fix the leaks in our streets.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Green on the next question. In looking at the town budget, what components of the budget do you advocate to be increased, and what components do you advocate to be decreased? And if necessary, how do you propose that the town raise additional revenue?
So, looking at the town budget, of course, water and sewer rates, love to see decreased. Not necessarily sure if I want to see anything increased. I mean, what's going to get increased is, as we go through this pay-as-you-throw program, and whoever's elected, I think there's a lot of steam here to remove that program as we currently sit. it's going to cost a little bit more money to go to a traditional program. But on the backside of that, because of recycling is such zero value on the market right now, even Malaysia's refusing recycling in China, that's going to go up. So that we're going to see an increase in trash removal for us, but decrease, of course, water and sewer rates. How do I propose it? One thing when I looked at the budget that kind of shocked me a little bit, and maybe not so much shocking, but cell tower usage fee is like $111,000 per year. So when I started researching this, you can build a 200-foot cell tower that can handle all 4 carriers for $173,000. That will actually generate, within the first 2 years, $500,000, as long as it's on your property. In fact, residential homeowners with large sums of property have started doing this because of the revenue factor to that. So if we were able to put that on the edge of town somewhere where it's not so, it's 200-foot cell tower, we would be able to create revenue, get rid of that $111,000 cost that's built into the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hoffman?
All right. So first of all, I believe in a yearly balanced budget. And the town council works extremely hard to make sure that has happened. And it has happened every year. We balance the budget. The general fund operating budget, which is all the things that we do in the town, minus the water and sewer, is about $812,000 this year in FY19. Next year in FY20, we'll go up to about $882,000. So that covers all the things that we do. The generation of income is in there as well. The taxes you pay, that funds all that, including that $111,000, which is income. That's the money. We have cell towers attached to our water tank, and we collect revenue on that. So that's money that's coming into the town. We utilize the resources we have to be able to generate income. So that's a good thing for the town of New Windsor. We need to keep operating within a balanced budget that ensures that we do not have to raise the taxes. And everything you can imagine is in the budget. If you ever take a look at our budget, which is on the website, you will see a line item for everything. Snow removal, all the public works equipment that we use, everything has a line item and a cost that we project that we put in there. And there is, some of those items are fluctuate. For instance, a good example is snow removal. Some years we spend $5,000 in salt. Some years we have to spend $25,000 in salt. So we have to have a budget using historical data that will put us in the ballpark that we can fund no matter what happens. I think your current town council has done an excellent job. Your town manager is doing a super job with the budget. And whoever's on the town council will find that we need to continue to maintain that balanced budget approach so that we can keep the citizens of New Windsor satisfied and with their qualities that we provide, the services we provide.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
Well, basically, in just agreeance again, would like to see, the water and sewer, down as originally said, but there is we do operate off a balanced budget that I know that is, worked hard and fought to be put together to sustain all services and whatnot to the citizens. I would be interested to see, and not a doubt on anybody that currently serves, but with some of the new people and some of the fresh ideas and perspectives that they bring to the table, may offer some more creativity to look in other avenues for better revenue generators and see where some of those things could change at some time.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
So I do agree the budget needs to be balanced. One of the things that I have seen going to the meetings is it is a tight budget. They do work hard. It was, I think, months, maybe even a year in the making just to make a budget for this year. So it is hard. One of the things I would like to see is to look at each number and be able to see what could be cut. I'm not for cutting big services, but there's things in there that I believe maybe we can save $500 on. I think the budget said $1,000 for a phone line. If we could change that over to a voice system, that we might be able to save $500. And if we cut 500 here, 500 there without losing any of our services, we can potentially save some money for the town.
Thank you. Councilwoman Schultz.
So, when we were asked what we thought of New Windsor and why we like to live here, many of us mentioned the small town qualities. And so that is our charm, and it's also a challenge, because we have about 600 households. We are going to be getting, the reserve is being developed, and Snyder Summit is being developed. So that's going to bring, maybe 100 something more, which brings more tax revenue in. But, as Councilman Hoffman said, we have a small budget, and it's lean. And I don't know that I would particularly advocate for increasing or decreasing anything in any kind of a big way. We're always going to be looking for new revenue sources, and I really want to publicly thank the staff. We have an amazing, tiny staff, basically 5 full-time people who run this town and do an amazing job with not a lot of resources. So I want to publicly thank them for what they do. There's no way that the council and the mayor could do the work that they do without them. And I look forward, I hope that you'll all vote for me and I'll be reelected and that I can continue to serve. And if that happens, I very much look forward to having a new voice on the council with some new ideas for perhaps some new revenue sources. But I agree with what's already been said. The budget is balanced, it's lean, we need to keep it that way. I'm not going to advocate for anything that's not absolutely necessary that puts more of a burden on our citizens.
Thank you. The next question was emailed to us by a New Windsor resident today regarding the Dealman Inn. We'll start with Mr. Hoffman. So what would you propose that the town do with the property to avoid the continued cost of maintaining and servicing the building and property?
So, first of all, I believe that the Dealman Inn is a historic property in town that adds charm and value to the downtown area. I am an advocate for the building. I think it can be an economic center for the town. I think that the town has taken the steps to preserve the building while we are looking for someone to purchase the building. I think it was important that we bought the building so that we were able to maintain control of that corner property right in the heart of town. If it fell into the wrong hands or fell into someone wanting to do something that the residents did not want with that property, we would have no control, had no control, or at least little control over what they did with that property. So having the town own it right now, although not the best thing, I understand, but it does give us the control to find a property owner that can use the building in a way that will be advantageous to the town. We have been very lucky that that property, we were able to get some grants. So that building facade, which looks very nice right now, was painted with grant money. We were chosen to be one of the Maryland Historic Society 6 to Fix programs that also provided some grant money, that we were able to do some assessments on things like the foundation so that a potential property owner would know what they were getting into, help us sell that property. None of that cost the town any money at all. That was just work on the town's mayor and staff to put together the necessary documentation to get those grants. The building is no longer an eyesore in town. It looks good. We are always looking for potential people to buy that property, and we are continuing to do that. And hopefully we will find someone that will put some businesses in that will generate economic development for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. Regarding the Dealman Inn, what would you propose the town do with the property to avoid the continued cost of maintaining and servicing it?
When the subject of purchasing the Dealman Inn, it came to light, I was in attendance of that meeting and I spoke in support of it. You know, that along with my historical passion for a lot of things in town. I hope that we finally get to a point that we see somebody grab the bull by the horns or take the ball and run with it with the property. It's all the transactions and whatnot that have taken place a long while ago. I know there's been some small, things that have taken it forward and whatnot, but it still is just not at that point. I don't know why, and I hope to maybe learn a little bit better, from the inside. But I just have to have faith in those that in the historical society and people that are involved in it right now, that they're making the best decisions that they can, So.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
I would like to see it be pushed for sale. One of the things that I go by is the Dealman Inn every day, and I see broken glass on many of the windows. Actually, one of the beams up top is actually pulling out of the building, and it looks scary. The painting's good, but the foundation's not. And one of the things that we can do is, as a town, is we can push for the sale to a federal program, a state program with a historical nature to it, so that we can keep the historical piece to it, but still give to sell the property so that we can get that fixed quickly. One of the things that was said at a forum 5 years ago was that in 5 years, the Dealman Inn will have businesses in it, bring money in the town, and will be the destination for this town. And yet you see it's overgrown, there's glass breaking, people write signs on the side of it every month or so. And it's sad. It has a great historical history to it, but it's sad that it's not to the point where it should be.
Thank you. Councilwoman Schultz?
So the Dealman is a unique property because of a lot of reasons. The history of it is probably the most significant one, but also the location. With it being on the corner of High and Main, it's sort of the main crossroads of the town. So when the right buyer comes along, I think it's going to be a spectacular transformation. The mayor has been very active, and I've gone along with him a couple of times. We've taken a lot of people through it for a tour. It's quite a challenge on the inside. It's kind of a warren of rooms. One of the things that Preservation Maryland did, which Councilman Hoffman mentioned, is they went inside with this special software where they measured all the rooms, and they generated this really cool 3D, diagram that turns and everything, and if anybody, I don't know if we have that on our website or not, but if anybody wants to see it, I can send you the link. It's on Preservation Maryland's website. So, I'm so glad that the town bought it, because I would have hated to see it raised and a convenience store put on the corner, which I think is one of the things that could have happened. But the property is a challenge. It needs a lot of work. And we did get about $600,000, I think it was, from the state to do a lot of work. The chimneys were rebuilt, the porches were rebuilt, all the painting was done. And that didn't cost the taxpayers anything. And it really, other than cutting the grass, it's not really costing the town anything right now. So I think it's worth holding on to it and continuing to advocate to get the right kind of business in there, which will attract other businesses and generate tax revenue. And just kind of as an aside, because we own the building, we were able to take part of the backyard and put some handicap parking in there, which will be an asset to have on Main Street. So that'll be happening soon.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to apologize to the mayor and councilmen on this board for misspeaking. So when I first looked at the budget, it was segmented, fees going in, fees coming out, and when I seen that, I thought it was going out to the cell tower that we have currently in Westminster, so I apologize for misspeaking. And I think in this kind of position, if you make a mistake, it's also good to come out publicly and be transparent about your mistake. So, and that's what you're going to get from me, a lot of honesty. And as far as the Dealman, and I'm a little conflicted with this, right? Because when I looked up the history of this inn, it's got great history, right? I mean, it's where Sir Isaac Alty, the founder, it was the very first bar and restaurant of this town. It was the hub of New Windsor. This town was built on tourism. People were coming from New York, people were coming from Philly, they were coming from down south just to come to New Windsor. So I'm a little conflicted with this because I kind of agree that, we need to preserve the history of it. But at the same time, I kind of envision it almost like storefronts, like old Ellicott City, right? To where you have multiple storefront shops and maybe a barber shop or a hair salon or a nail salon, something, along those lines. The last thing I think we currently need is another restaurant in the town. I think we have enough of those, but I like to see it, a property owner come in, preserve the history, and turn it into something like small-town Ellicott City to where people will want to walk and come and enjoy it.
Thank you. We'll start with Mr. Gubernatis this time. It's a question from the audience. If elected, do you plan to attend meetings and set aside time to work for the town behind the scenes?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I used to regularly attend meetings, and I was involved and active at one point in time. Life got away, and the kids are growing up, things are busy and whatnot. But if I'm elected and they deserve in the role, I'm going to serve it in the fullest capacity necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Yeah, so actually, I'm not elected yet, and I already do attend every meeting. I enjoy all the meetings. I enjoy going to them. It makes me feel closer to the community. As I said before, I already have the website where I encourage people to reach out. I'm always constantly on Facebook to get the residents' concerns, maybe new ideas. So I'm already involved, and I look forward to being involved even more.
Thank you. Councilwoman Schultz?
Well, obviously, I already have a track record of attending the meeting, so I probably continue to do that. And so that, we have the work session and the regular meeting. But like I said, I also attend, I attend a local economic development meeting that meets about quarterly. And then I also attend the MML meetings, which is the Maryland Municipal League meetings. And I also attend the Human Services Programs Carroll County meetings, which I represent New Windsor on their board. So, and I enjoy all of that. So I would certainly continue to do that.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think any of us running for this position would do a disservice being elected and not attending the meetings, being involved, working behind the scenes, talking to residents, seeing the concerns. I think some of the things, since I've been here, is just communication to some degree, right? So I'm very active on the town's Facebook page, the residents page, more so active on, posting concerns and hearing feedback. Also, if elected as a council member, I like to do online polls. So if there's issues that are coming up, we can get the polls out and see how the residents are really feeling about the issue, so I can take that back to the council. So yeah, I mean, if I'm elected, I'm going to be at every meeting, and I'm also going to go ahead and work behind the scenes to make sure I'm upholding this office and representing our residents.
Thank you. Councilman Hoffman?
So I guess I don't want to say no, right, because nobody would buy that, right? So I believe I have a proven track record of attending the meetings. I started attending the meetings well before I ever ran for office, because I wanted to see how the government ran and how I could fit in and make a difference. So ever since then, I have been attending the meetings. I've attended them in many capacities, as not only the town council meeting, but the work sessions, the planning commission meeting, which I said I am liaison to. We also spend many hours a week on email reviewing documents. We spend many hours on email counterpointing items that we have for discussion. We also spend our own time on things like MML, the Maryland Municipal League, where we meet with the other county towns, councils, and we share ideas with them. We do that on our own time. It's all on our own time. And I know many of us have taken our own vacation days to be involved in town events and meetings, so I will certainly continue to do those things if elected.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Mr. Hall. This was emailed to us as well. New Windsor has been known for tidy, well-kept homes where you could see pride in the ownership. That doesn't seem to be the case as much anymore. The town does have ordinances to address this issue, so what would you do to improve enforcement?
That's actually one of the things that I've brought up in past meetings is enforcement. Living on Main Street, you do see some towns that are, some houses that are not kept as well, trash piled up, things like that. The town did have to remove trash from one house recently because it was unbearable. I do appreciate that the town did that. It did help upkeep the town. One thing that I would like is more clarification on the nuisance ordinances. I have heard that recently there was some debate of how that's being enforced, the snow removal. There's discussions, but I would like to see actions and see how we're going to enforce it, because you can have as many ordinances as you want. If you don't enforce them, what good are they? They're just another sheet of paper. So I'm not an advocate for putting hundreds of ordinances, but there is some basics that need to be addressed.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
So this goes back to the small town challenge. One of the things that the citizens need to know and think about is, how do you want your resources used? And to share that with your council. Because we do have, I think, most of the ordinances in place to address some of the problems that are probably being referred to in that question. We have, for instance, we have a disorderly house ordinance, but you know, we have rules that we have to follow as a government too. So you can't just go on somebody's property and start cleaning up. You know, there's a legal process that has to be followed. They have to be notified. If we end up actually going on a property and cleaning something up, then we have to put a lien on the house. That's another legal property. So, and again, I mentioned earlier, we have a small staff. So it's always a balancing act. I actually just emailed the town manager today and reminded him of a property where I had asked them to go clean up the trash because the house has been deserted, unfortunately. So, you know, those are ongoing challenges, but, you know, we don't have the staff we don't have a full-time person to walk around and look at houses and address those problems. We kind of count on the citizens to let us know when those problems are there. And I love the town and it's beautiful and I want to keep it beautiful, but you all need to know that there's a process for that and it takes time and it takes money. And, you know, I'll certainly continue to advocate because I want to keep our town beautiful.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, so actually, Councilwoman Schultz kind of mirrored a lot of things I wanted to say. So we have a small staff, right? So we depend on the citizens to inform us to say, hey, you know, this house is disorderly, or this house, the grass is a foot tall, and at that time, you can single out and then have someone go over and enforce it. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, we don't have a compliance officer that goes around and just checks town ordinances and make sure everybody's in compliance. So we rely on the citizens to make sure that houses are upkept and the homeowners are handling their end of the deal here. But one of the ordinances that I think I've never really seen enforced, and I'd like to see more enforcement on them, in my view, is the nighttime curfew enforcements. I've actually had on our property, you know, a little less than a year ago, where we had our cars broken into and stuff taken out of it. So there's young kids that literally will walk up Lambert Avenue from other homes and have got into not only my property, but some other properties around the area, and I think that needs to be addressed. And with being a council member, I would like to enforce that a little more.
Thank you. Councilman?
Thank you. So as the other candidates said, we do have ordinances in place that cover most of the activities that we would want to curtail, such as, you know, high grass and the nuisance ordinance for the rental properties and all. We have recently working on putting together a rental property certification, an ordinance that will make the landlords register their property, so that we have more information about who the landlord is of those homes, so that we can contact them in event that there is problems at their properties. We'll tell you that we work very closely with our town officer. He's the one that does a lot of the eyes and ears for us. He will not necessarily enforce the ordinances for us, but he lets us know when there is issues. He is the one that will work with us when we have to talk to homeowners and things like that. So I certainly wish that everyone would take pride in their home and take care of it. That's not always going to be the case. So I think the town has done a good job in having the ordinances in place to take care of those issues when we have to. But I also want to echo what Ms. Schultz said, that whenever we do go down that path, it does cost the town payers money because the taxpayers' money. We have to go through the legal, and that costs money. So there is a fine line as well when we do approach that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis.
Well, the ordinances are important and whatnot. I see them in two different categories. I see the category of the run amok, everyday, quality of life, how a home looks, how somebody upkeeps it and whatnot. I also see the value also where it comes to the historical preservation of properties that have a long time here in town. I think, just for the most part, I think the residents just really need to know what the proper avenue and channels are sometimes. A lot of times when people will take it to social media or complain to somebody else, but as long as they kind of know what the proper avenue or channel is to address it and how that takes place, should be extended so people are just better educated.
Thank you. Starting with Councilwoman Schultz. The pay-as-you-throw pilot trash program is coming to an end. Just wondering about your thoughts on the program and whether you would like to see possibly continuing with it in the future.
So I did vote for the pay-as-you-throw program. We're talking about budget, and the largest budget item we have as a town is trash. There's not really anything even close. It's about $90,000 a year. About half of that is the actual truck that comes to your house and picks the trash up, and the other half is what the county calls a tipping fee. I wish they would call it a dumping fee, because it sounds like we're getting tipped for bringing them our trash, but we're not. So, to come to the landfill and dump the trash. And so with the pay-as-you-throw, we were given the opportunity to not have a tipping fee. We used the money from the waived tipping fee, because it was only part of the year, to give the residents the gift cards to buy the bags. The numbers that I've seen from the town manager, it looks like if we had been paying a tipping fee, we were probably saving about $1,100 a month. Now, we're not actually, because it was a pilot. But going forward, if we continued the program, we could be saving about $14,000 a year. Now, in a little town like New Windsor, $14,000 is a lot of money. And, we talked about balancing the budget, and I just felt like it was my responsibility to try to save the town some money. The recycling thing, I get that, but, a lot of this stuff is on the county. We're not deciding about recycling, the county's deciding about recycling. So if the county decides that they're not going to recycle anymore, and we don't pay a tipping fee on recycling, by the way, then of course we're not going to continue the program. A lot of these things are in the county's hands. If the county decides to raise the tipping fee a lot, or and it doesn't save us any money, then we're not going to continue the program. We just don't know what they're going to do right now. We've tried to kind of ask for answers, and as far as I know, as of our last meeting, we didn't have one, so.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
Yeah, so as far as the pay-as-you-throw program, last information that I was able to read, the county is actually, they gave us a decreased rate in the tipping fee to be a part of this pilot program. At the end of the pilot program, there's no longer a decreased rate on the tipping fee. Currently, the market for recyclables is horrific. I stated this in my video, and I'll state it here. In 2018, there was an article that came out in the Baltimore Sun. So counties that are accepting other counties' recyclables, because there's no value in it, they're talking about possibly having a recyclable tax on top of that. So we don't want to get into something to where we say, okay, we're going to go with this recycling program, and then find out 6 months later we're paying an additional tax to throw away our recyclables. I'm not against recycling. I'm not against composting. In fact, if the market trend was to change and we were able to come together and look at grants to help educate the community, have money come in to help support a recycling and composting program to where it's not such a burden on the residents, and actually have a sticker program comparable to an actual bag program. If it's all done right, community's informed, and we're educated, I'm all for it. But until the market changes, I think we just need a traditional program. In the long term, as of right now, it will save us more money. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman?
Okay, thank you. So I did not vote for the pay-as-you-throw program, but to be fair to my other councilmen, that voted for it. I did not vote for it because it was a bad program. I not voted for it because they were not ready to implement it for the businesses in town. That's the only reason, okay? When the town council voted for it, I fully support the town council and fully support the program. I will tell you that the numbers look good for the program, that we were able to save the town money by not putting as much solid waste into the landfill, thus decreasing the tipping fee cost that we would have put. Now, this was a pilot. The town residents were made whole by the gift certificate with the bags, okay? I also feel that this is a more fair way to do trash than our traditional way of collecting trash because we're treating it like a utility. So if you throw one bag of trash away, that's what you pay for. If your neighbor throws 5 bags of trash away, that's what they pay for. In the Fair Share program, we're paying all the same. So whether you throw 1 or 5, we're all paying the same. I don't really think that that is the fairest way for the trash to be taken care of. You wouldn't want to do that with your electric bill or your cable bill or your phone bill, I'm sure. You wouldn't want to share it with your neighbor. So we could treat trash like a utility, and I think everyone would be a little more cautious about what they throw away, and the landfill would benefit from that as well. Now, as far as the recycling goes, I totally agree that maybe the market is not going to be there, and if the county starts to charge us for recycling, we're going to have to pay that additional fee in a traditional program as well. So we may have to find additional money to pay for the tipping fees of the recyclables.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
I think it's everybody's responsibility to take a piece and to recycle and to, not, throw things in the common trash that could be reused or through a process or whatnot. I did not agree with this program. I, would look to repeal it myself. But one thing I was thinking about when I was heading home from work the other day is hopefully this program, whether it was to continue or not continue, has raised enough awareness amongst everybody that if we do a little more of our due diligence in the recycling capacity, that we can have an impact on reducing the tipping fee. Thank you.
Mr. Hall?
I do believe that we need to repeal the pay-as-you-throw trash program and bring back the old program. That's due to many parts. One of the things is the current council didn't get communication from the commissioners. That was the main thing. The commissioners were supposed to reach out to them and give constant feedback. They never did. So I took it and I reached out to the commissioners. They wanted to set up a meeting, and then as soon as I said, great, let's meet, nothing. I actually found out that they are making thousands of dollars on the bag sales, and like was said before, if we do continue on with this program, that burden is going to come onto us. We're going to have the town staff regulate the bag sales, purchase the bags, distribute the bags, and at $14,000 in savings, and then you factor in the commissioners did vote to increase the rate for the town, so that's gonna cut into the $14,000. Then you gotta manage the bag sales. It's just not a program that I see is financially there. I think that everybody was happy with the old program, and that's the way that I would see going forward.
Thank you. And let's finish the question and answer portion of the evening with an economic development question. Just starting with Mr. Green, do you foresee ways to bring more business into New Windsor? And whether or not you do, are there any other avenues of revenue that you could see bring into New Windsor?
Yeah, so again, and not being on the inside, I don't know the current small business rate, but maybe, again, if we can lower a tax rate for small businesses, be more attractive. We just spoke about the Daleman Inn, so maybe we can sell it at the purchase price. Since we had so many grants to fix it up and do other things, just to recoup our money back from that may interest another business. So, and again, if we do develop park systems, what can we build in a park to create revenue? I think currently what we're looking at right now, I think that are our best avenues. Again, to be attractive to small businesses, you got to make it attractive for them. 31 is a great business location. How many people travel up 31 every day? I mean, it's traffic up and down, up and down. So that is a great market for businesses, but how can we attract them? Can we reduce the taxes for small businesses for a period of time? Can we help facilitate small businesses coming here, maybe offering some other programming that we may be able to give them? So that's how I would look at it and try to develop it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman?
So the town does a lot to help the small businesses right now, the current businesses that we have. We do things like we post about them on the town websites, the newsletters, things like that. We've had some new businesses open in town, most recently, Frankie's Bar and Grill opened. I think a few years ago when we were doing this forum, Hoover was coming on board. We've had the New Windsor liquor store turn and become a business, again as well. So we fully support the businesses we have. I think we need to continue to look at the Dillman Inn as the economic center of town to see, and as we've been doing, look for ways that we can grow businesses there. We have several other business buildings in town. I think once the momentum starts going, hopefully we'll be able to attract businesses in those as well. And as Mr. Green said, I think the parks that we are trying to put into town will be a source of people coming to the town. The town will become a destination. If we have good parks, we have ball fields, there may be tournaments, that will generate foot traffic. Foot traffic will generate customers for the businesses. And I believe that will help spark the business economic growth in town.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
I've seen, that's one other thing I look at all the time. I see a lot of historical pictures of different things that have been here throughout time, things that were anchors or this, that, or the other. And I'll often ask myself, why we still don't have that base or the attractiveness for those businesses to be here. I also know that, we go through retail trends and different things where, the mom and pop shop, suffers and then they close or whatnot. I've always felt in my heart that, this town could be a destination and, could attract more small businesses. Whatever that magic item is at the moment, I don't know because, I'm not fully involved in the council and knowing how some of the things that we do or operate or whatnot is. I look a lot of times at a town like the one that I grew up with, which is Sykesville. It is just totally turned around. It's just they've got stuff going up and down the street after being silent for years, and I don't know sometimes if we shouldn't just reach out to some people or consult with them with some ideas of what was the magic thing that worked for them. Where were some things that they did or things that they offered as enticements or whatnot to make somebody comfortable to come into town and set up shop. But we do have the potential to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
So the University of Maryland did a phenomenal job with the park. They made designs for the parks around town, and that should be uploaded to the website soon. And it's great. You guys got to see those. It's where you want to bring your kids. It's where you want your kids to have tournaments. That's going to bring business to town. The Dillman Inn, as everybody said, it'd be great to see 3-4 businesses. It was in the past. It'd be great to see those set up again. Some of the old properties that we have in town, we're moving the town hall to a new building. If we could sell that and use that as a business, that's more tax revenue coming in. That's the sale of a town-owned property. Things like that is great, and we always love the small town nature, but there's always ways that you can work in new businesses. When we upgraded the streets, there's fiber optics coming into town. We can put that underneath the streets as well, and then that'll enable things like faster internets, different internet companies to lower the prices for residents, things like that. So it's a time where we're going to have great economic development in the next 10 years or so. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
So I want to give a little shout out to the mayor because it was his idea to involve the University of Maryland in the park plan. It was a free program for their graduate students who do planning. And as Mr. Hull said, they did a fabulous job when you get a chance to take a look at those. And one of the things that he directed them to do was create a space that would make you want to move to New Windsor. And I think that's what they did. They had two plans, and I think that the ultimate combination will be something of the two. But the town's been looking for quite a while at this property. I don't know if you know what we're talking about. It's sort of what runs along the railroad track and behind the fire department, behind the carnival grounds. The town owns most of that property. So I think that that would draw people, and I actually really like the splash park idea, so we have to think more about that. That's why not, right? If we can bring in some money. And the Dealman, we already talked about that, but we need something, sort of an anchor property in town. And one of the things I think all the time, and I tried to talk the Rab who runs the liquor store into this, is putting in a coffee drive-up window. We have, anybody who lives on a main road, and Mr. Green and I both do, knows how many thousands of cars drive through this town. Nobody wants to get out of their car. They want to drive up to the window and get their coffee. So, if something comes along where we could support a business coming in and doing that, that would be great. And one of the discussions that the council started having last year, and then a lot of other things happened and we didn't get back to it, is looking at the business tax rate. So we need to get back to that and see what we can do with that. That will help the businesses and attract businesses.
Thank you. And now we will take closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to present a closing statement, and we're right back where we started with Mr. Hoffman.
All right, thank you very much. I have lived in New Windsor for 25 years, and my reason for running for the New Windsor Town Council is to help New Windsor remain a great place to live and raise a family. I am aware that my decisions impact the residents, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. That's why I am committed to competent stewardship, strategic planning and management of the town's resources to ensure the town can adequately prioritize and address today's projects as well as future initiatives. For example, the infrastructure and maintenance projects continue to have the funds set aside to renew, repair, and replace as appropriate. Economic development continue to explore new opportunities for the town to make the town a destination. Fiscal responsibility, ensuring that the town's financial resources are used wisely. Operate the town on a balanced budget and saving for a rainy day. And collaborative problem solving, working with all the town stakeholders to resolve issues and move the town forward by addressing the residents' concerns, supporting the town's businesses, supporting the local civic organizations, working with other municipalities to leverage and share experiences, and working with the state of Maryland. I would appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve the residents of New Windsor as a member of the Town Council, and I ask for your vote on May 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gubernatis?
I would just like an opportunity to be able to serve in a capacity to help make decisions to make and to better our community, to bring new opportunities to everybody, to reduce our expenses, and to move this town forward, and to do it in a hands-on capacity, and to be open to the citizens for any questions or input that they would like to give me or desire at any point in time.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Like I said before, one of my main things that sets me apart is my dedication. Since we moved in, I've always gone to the meetings. I enjoy the meetings. I have always posted online. I am welcome to feedback. I get emails from residents regularly, phone calls. I enjoy closing the gap between the residents and the government because most people can't make the late night meetings. And I'd like their voice to be heard on these meetings. So in addition, I have the 3 principles of reduce, rethink, and replenish. And I hope that on May 14th you vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
So I'm running again, as I said when I started, just because I love New Windsor and because I'm so dedicated. I pride myself on being available and accessible and listening and Sometimes people get into fights on social media. You won't see me doing that. I always try to say, I hear what you're saying and let's talk about it. And I'm always going to continue to do that as long as I'm involved in the town. In the past, many years before the current council was in place, the town didn't do some of the planning that it should have done. And that's one of the reasons there's a lot of reasons, but it's one of the reasons the water bill is so high. So I'm committed and dedicated to planning for the future and for the present. I've advocated to improve communication with the residents. It's kind of a slow process because, again, we sort of have that small staff, and while the council members all try to communicate on their own time too, everybody has a full-time job. But I'm going to continue to advocate that we improve communication. I don't remember if I already mentioned this or not, but one of the things we're hoping to do when we have our new space is to be able to publicize our meetings online so you'll be able to see what's going on, and I'm going to continue to advocate for that. I love New Windsor. I enjoy working for all of you. I enjoy serving you, and I hope that you'll vote for me on May 14th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Green.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to say I appreciate everyone coming out here tonight. I know you took an hour and a half out of your lives to be here to hear what we have to say. Hopefully, you'll still vote for me after this horrific speaking experience I had here tonight. As you can see, as many meetings as I lead in my current job, sitting here with this little clock is very nerve-wracking. So why vote for me? So as I mentioned, all my qualifications and skill sets, I'm going to come to work for you every time I go to a council meeting. I'm going to come to work for you every day. If you see me on the street, you want to speak to me, you want to express your concerns. I was a youth softball coach for 5 years. I can handle criticism. Criticism makes you better. If somebody tells you you're doing something right 100% of the time, they're lying to you. So I'm willing to accept criticism. I'm willing to get better and meet your needs as a council member. With that, I say thank you, and thank you for coming out.
Thank you all.
Thank you. We'd like to take this opportunity to thank the candidates for the council seats for being with us this evening. Also, we'd like to thank our moderator for this evening, Mr. Bob Blubaugh with the Carroll County Times. And a special thanks to you, our audience, for joining us this evening and for the questions that you all submitted. But before we go, I'd like to encourage everyone to learn more about the candidates by joining us at the Carroll Voters Forum at carrollmediacenter.org. Okay? Above all, I would encourage you to remember to vote in this upcoming election and on May 14th. Listen again, thank you for joining us. Be safe and travel safely home. Good night.
Thanks, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it.